Remember, when raising an infant, the enemy always has more ammunition.
Warning. The following podcast is another wasted hour. Warning. The following podcast is another wasted hour.
Don't waste my motherfucking time!
I actually stole that from Victor's Facebook. I figured he usually talks in between each of the breaks, so I'd give him an opportunity to do it in my voice. But I have exciting news. But before I announce that news, I need to let you know that the next hour is going to be replaced with two ignorant, uninformed, ill-advised, self-deprecating morons ranting about opinions they have no right to have, which are probably wrong and absolutely do not matter. Our goal is to convince you where we hail from, just outside Washington, D.C., is not just a city of politics and scandals, but one brimming with art, music, and culture, as impossible as that may seem. So listeners, now that you know why I'm here, I'm Keith, and back from his sabbatical is my co-host, Victor. Victor, welcome back.
It's not Victor!
What? Wait, what the hell? Who is that?
Victor's still out of town, so I broke in and stole all his recording stuff.
God damn it, Adam! Why did you steal his recording stuff? He could have been on the show again.
Because now I get to be a co-host.
Fine. It sounds like I'm not going to have much of an option here. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show, Engineer Adam.
Well, thank you very much. It's great to be back again.
Why are you here this week?
Vikings!
Vikings? What?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So, I'm interested. You've piqued my attention here. Why Vikings?
So as we know from my earlier appearances on the show, I'm in a folk metal band.
Yeah.
And I actually had to run to where I'm recording from tonight from a show that we played out in the woods of Western Maryland.
Like just for the woods?
We were just out in the woods at some YMCA camp that got taken over by a bunch of LARPers.
So people are throwing like beanbag spells at one another while you're playing music?
And they had like, you know, big bows and arrows with like the giant like the foam stuff on the ends, and they're like
foam
instead of a mosh pit, we had guys sword fighting. So
that's pretty amazing. And how many Vikings were there?
A few dozen, I think. It was kind of like there was like the pre-event dinner last night for all the people that actually put it on. So we were just kind of like playing for them, and so all the people working there and all that. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's fun. Did you end up going LARPing at all?
No, I did not.
Have you ever LARPed?
Well, actually, no. Does it count if you get really drunk with the Vikings?
It depends. Are you role playing at the time?
I mean, if I'd had a couple more drinks, I'm sure we could have ended up in a situation that required some role playing.
Right, especially if there was a female Viking.
Or, you know, whatever.
You're open-minded. I'm glad to hear that. So, yeah, I'll call that LARPing. I think that's...
Yay! I'm cool now.
Right, that's
that's why I'm... Well, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, that's basically called dating as well. Some people call the same thing.
Well, that's why I'm here. Why are you here this week, Keith?
Well, we have some very important things coming up. Now we're
LARPing.
LARPing is one of those, but more importantly, the elections are coming up. We're here in Virginia. So now the elections are on the 7th. This is coming out, on Tuesday-ish. So it'll be, the end of October, beginning of November. So usually we talk about a thing that's happening like, the week that things are coming out. But this is pretty important, and I want you to make sure that you're marking your calendar. So we're doing a gubernatorial election. I think there's some delegates that are up for election and a few other things. So long story short, I know that we have a lot of different people who listen to this show, and you probably have different views on, who you think is maybe the best candidate. Most important thing is go and actually vote and actually have those views, taken note of. Because right now we have a minority of people who are making a majority of the decisions, and that's not how this is supposed to work. So first and foremost, if you don't go and actually vote, you suck. And second, if your views are different than my views, then you don't suck so much if you skip. So that's just a side note. But in all seriousness, everybody, November 7th, hopefully you've already registered. Just go to the polls. I don't care what you believe in. Just go let us know what you believe in, and at least let the real majority come out. So
and then make sure to post about it on Facebook all day.
Yeah, that's the other thing, is all Tuesday is going to be everybody like with their stickers saying that they voted, and it'll just be an entire wall of that.
Or if you're me, just complaining about how the lines are never long enough for me to actually catch up on my podcasts.
Right, exactly. So speaking of long people who will probably be standing in long lines and voting this coming election, we have in studio the one and only Seth Kibel. Welcome.
Hello. Glad to be on the show. I do have to point out, I am unfortunately a Maryland resident, and we have no elections this year.
Really? None?
Yeah, we only vote every 2 years in Maryland. We can't handle this every year thing.
It's a lot of commitment.
So yeah. So I mean, I'll be keeping an eye on the returns here in Virginia, and I encourage all the Virginians to vote. But sadly, I don't get to vote this year.
Okay, so Virginians are going to need to go out to the polls. Maryland folks don't have any polls to go to, so instead, maybe they should consider coming to your CD release party.
That's true. There are other types of polls in Maryland, but not election polls.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Stripper polls.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. You can go to those.
Yeah. So that's also on election night, though, right?
Yes. I'm having a big CD release show at Bethesda Jazz and Blues in Bethesda, Maryland on election night. Mm-hmm. And if it's as we'll be talking about, it's a very politically themed show. Yep. But I will also make sure to keep the audience continuously updated on the evening's returns and results.
Oh, good. Okay.
In hopefully a much more entertaining way than you might find on your local fake news channel of your choice.
Will there be any exit polls from your show?
Oh, yes.
There should be.
Yeah.
Like, how did you like the show? And then we'll just say, it was good.
Yeah.
Like, you said bad.
Strongly agree.
102% said it sucked.
Right. That's weird. That seems like a high number. So yeah, and you kind of spoke about it yourself. We got you on the show. You have the album that's coming out is Seth Kibel Presents Songs of Snark and Despair. It's at Bethesda Blues and Jazz Supper Club, as you might imagine, in Bethesda, Maryland.
Yeah.
The music from that album, fairly political.
Yeah, it's an album's worth of songs that I wrote in the months immediately following last year's election.
Okay.
Basically, all the songs were written between November and about around the inaugural or so. And it's kind of a dark, comedic look on the current state of affairs in the American electorate. Definitely a leftist progressive bent.
Oh, really? So no songs.
Fair warning.
No songs that go, yes!
That's
Nailed
it!
This is awesome! Woo! Finally!
Good times.
Right.
Good times.
So you, is it safe to say that at the CD release on Tuesday, November 7th, you won't be concealed carrying a gun?
No. Although
okay.
we will have a raffle, and one person in the audience will get a $300 million contract to rebuild Puerto Rico's electric grid.
Oh, that's very nice of you. Excellent. Well,
it only requires you and one other person.
That's it. Exactly. Exactly.
I saw a tweet from Puerto Rico that what was it? Trump tweeted something about how great things were going in Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
And then like Puerto Rico tweeted back like doctors doing surgery by cell phone flashlights. It's like, yeah, our definitions of things going great are a little off. So hopefully, so now I know why he's always like, my golf course, it's the greatest. And it's like, well, it's like surgery under flashlights greatest, right?
That's it.
Like that's
yeah, it's all relative.
Greatest.
But I'm sure by now they've managed to get all the tree branches off the greens and the fairways down there. So
Right.
he's happy.
Yeah, that's the important bit. I mean, how much electricity do you need for golf? Really, it's the carts, but then you can just get people to carry them. Right.
Yeah,
so,
that's it.
Yeah.
I'm predicting it now. The 2017 is going to be the year the Palanquin comes back.
The Palanquin?
Yeah, when they you're on the little board with the pillows and there's like 4 dudes just carrying you through the streets.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice. That's old school. I like it.
Yeah.
With your clubs. Like I'd like to see that on a golf course where they actually just carry you around to each of the tees.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, right here. I'm just going to put this in.
I mean, what's the point of having a caddy if you still have to use your own feet?
That's fair.
Exactly. Yeah.
We're missing a market right
That's
now.
it.
And it's such a great power move.
Right, exactly.
Like everyone else has that dinky little cart. You've got 4 eunuchs just carrying you around, doing whatever you say.
This would be the way to convince Trump that we shouldn't build the wall. Like, they would just be like, now, and granted, this is not me speaking, but if I were to make an argument for him,
Go for it.
It would
Let's
be,
hear it.
hey, here's just a thought. So we have a lot of like immigration happening illegally, right? And they're coming over. But we could put a wall, and then maybe that would stop some of that from happening. But then who would carry us on the golf courses?
Exactly.
And he'd be like, well, that's a really good point. Yeah, maybe we...
Coal miners.
Coal miners will do it. They don't have the breath support, I think. To be able,
not anymore, sadly. That black lung makes it hard.
yeah, you would just be so disturbed by the wheezing as they brought you from green to... Shh, I'm on my backswing, for fuck's sake. So valid points, I think. So once again, Seth Kibel here for the entire evening, which is great because we have some very important jobs for you this evening.
I'm excited.
First and foremost, we're going to need you. I don't know if you've done this before. Have you ever been a news editor before?
I have not since like my grade school days.
Well, we're going to throw you headfirst into the deep end of editing the news.
Throw me away.
Yeah, so this is a segment we like to call the weather report. So what we've done is we've scoured the internet for news reports, and we're going to run them past you as chief, editor and editor-in-chief of our news program.
Fake news.
Yeah, to let us. Well, that's our goal.
Yeah.
And so to let us know whether or not these should be news.
Okay, I'm game.
Feel free to use whatever criteria you'd like for your new news program. So without further ado, I think I'm going to hand things off to Engineer Adam to start off.
Well, speaking of that, what is it? What did you say? Liberal leftist bent.
Yeah.
Do you have an axe to grind?
Oh, I've got several axes to grind.
Are they concealed carry axes?
Well, in Paris, they say you should probably just... In Paris, they say that you should just throw them instead.
Oh, wait, what?
Parisians are famous for their love of art, fashion, good food, and fine wine.
Ooh
So
la la.
obviously, they'll jump at the chance to pay 19 euros an hour to throw an axe at a target on a wall.
Oh, okay.
Wait. Oh, I thought you said 19-year-olds. 19 euros.
Euros.
19
yeah, you know,
euros.
Okay. You throw axes at 19-year-olds.
Because I'd pay for that.
And they could probably use the attitude adjustment. Like, oh, you're talking back again? No, get up against the wall. Time for me to practice.
Yeah. No, that is good. Is wine involved is the next question.
So this is Paris, not America, so no.
So no, you can't drink and then throw axes.
No, it does say in here, so it's set up by a Thomas Morel, who's a 30-year-old former financier, who saw how much Canadians liked this particular sport and thought, well, if the Canadians like it, then obviously the French will like it.
Axes don't kill people.
It's people who kill people.
Axes don't decapitate people.
Right. People kill people with guns.
Yeah.
That's
but
what
the axes are blunted, and you have to go through a safety course, and like sign your waivers, and you're not allowed to have any alcohol. But then you just get to throw axes at these big wooden like tree trunks on the wall and try to stick them.
Okay.
Wouldn't the first step of the safety course be don't throw axes?
Yeah, you would think that would be. All right, here's an axe. First things first. Don't throw this.
That's it.
Right.
Are you a mountain man? No. You probably should not be throwing these.
Second.
That being said, you paid us 19 euros, so have a blast for the next hour.
So that's very American, right? Where we say, like, here's the safe thing to do, but if you have enough money, don't do the safe thing anymore. Does not apply to you. Because second would be, don't swing this wildly, right? And then third would be like, why do you have an axe?
Do not hold it outstretched and turn suddenly.
What's that, Adam?
I said, you shouldn't hold it outstretched and then turn suddenly.
Yeah. It seems like dulling it makes it harder. That would be more of a difficult thing to do. So that's expert mode, I assume, where you throw a dull axe into a wall.
Yeah, it's probably so you don't like lop off the fingers on your offhand when you try to get fancy with it.
Right. So, Seth, the question is, although it sounds like a lot of fun, and it obviously puts safety third, is it news?
This is America.
Yeah.
Axes are for pussies. Okay? So no, that's not news over here unless it's like fully automatic, bump stock axes.
No, that's the thing. Yeah, it's a
then
fully
we don't
automatic
care.
axe.
Then we don't care. I mean, that's nothing. That's like, that's kindergarten in Texas. All my axes live in Texas. There you go.
That's true.
Yeah, but a post-nuclear war, we may be relying on axes again, so don't count it out just yet.
What I like with the idea of using an axe is that you really mean to maim someone at that point, right? Like you can accidentally shoot somebody, but it's hard to like really do damage with an axe unless you're like, I'm going to pick up this axe and totally maim you with this axe.
Yeah, it's not a subtle tool whatsoever.
Exactly. All right, so no, we're starting off. No, it's a
Nope.
All right, then I'm going to give this a shot as well. Let's see if I can get on the scoreboard here. I don't know if you've heard of. Are you familiar with kind of pop music that's out there right now?
Somewhat.
So there's a guy named Ed Sheeran.
Yes, he's the hobbity guy.
Hobbity guy.
Yes.
That's a good way of putting it. Yeah, I could see him going to the Shire. So on his way to the Shire while riding his bike, he was hit by a car, and now he's dead. No, that's not true. I made that part up, but he did break both arms.
Ooh.
Meaning he had to cancel some shows. The interesting thing is the headline says Ed Sheeran cancels shows after breaking both arms, Australian tour still on. And so that made me, like, I had to pause for a second because I'm like, how afraid of Australians do you have to be like, I promise I will not cancel your shows even though I've broken both arms.
I bet he had to cancel his axe throwing date, though.
That's true, I'm assuming. And so
but it is kind of weird that he's going to the one place on Earth where you really want your full capability to defend yourself at any given moment.
Right.
True.
And he's going there with his two broken
Kangaroos will
arms.
kick his ass.
I just imagine Australians being like, "Oi, if you cancel your shows, we're going to break your other arms." And he's like, "Guys, I don't have any other arms to break. I've already broke. No, never mind. Okay, we're doing the shows."
Good. Barbie's not canceled.
Yeah.
That's not a cast.
Right. Although you have to hand it to Eddie. I'm going to call him Eddie because we're friends now.
Sure. Yeah.
Because you get hit by a car while bike riding, break both arms, and you still promise to do concerts, like at all.
Yeah.
Because if it's me, I would be like, I'm going to put everything on hold for a while and get back to you when I can physically wipe my own ass again. Like that. Then we'll talk concerts. Like, I don't know what that healing is going to look like, but give it some time. I did find out that the tour itself is in March, so there's time. So I guess he felt like, I'll be back up and running, but I'd be like, just cancel everything for the rest of my life until my arms are back. I assume it makes him a new level of badass to say that he's still doing shows despite possibly having broken arms. But is it news?
I'm going to have to say that this is news. And here's my thinking.
All right.
I don't know much about Ed Sheeran, but what little I know, he seems like the kind of guy who has no bad habits, doesn't do drugs. He has like one alcoholic drink a month.
Yeah.
Like to celebrate his mom's birthday.
Oh, really?
He goes to bed
Every
at like
month?
10:30 p.m. every night.
I didn't know you were so close with him.
Well, I'm just saying, this is what I imagine, He doesn't just look both ways before crossing the street. He looks like three ways. He looks like left, right, and then left again just to make sure.
And then behind him.
So, it's not newsworthy when, Keith Richards goes into a heroin coma.
Right.
That's not news. That's just another day that ends in Y.
Right.
But I figure it's karma having its way that Ed Sheeran, who I kind of just imagine, just by looking at him, he's the safest person in the world.
So he's one of those guys that, like, if there's mold on cheese, he doesn't cut the mold off. He throws the whole cheese out just in case.
Oh, totally. He
Yeah.
checks expiration dates and everything.
Yeah,
And if it's like 2 weeks away, it's gone.
It's probably just, you don't want to you don't want to mess with that because
It's gone.
Yeah, it could be a little old. You don't know how long it was on the shelf. Yeah. And so then, what you're saying is when, what's the guy from Black Sabbath?
Ozzy?
Ozzy.
So when Ozzy had his ATV accident.
Yeah, that's not news.
You were like, nah,
That's
whatever.
not news. That's just Ozzy.
Yeah, but when Ed Sheeran gets hit by a car on his bike and breaks
It's
both
like
his
the
arms.
Pope in a sex scandal, you know?
Well, the Christian or the Catholic Church, not that far.
Bad
from-
example.
Okay. Well,
Yeah. Let's say we had a news story about that a few episodes ago,
Yes,
I think
bet
it was.
you did.
I would be really disappointed if this Pope did it because this is the first time ever where I've had like a president that I'm like, I don't know, and a Pope that I'm like, I mean, you might want to listen to him.
I hear you. I know. What's up with that?
Usually I'm like, this guy, Pope, I don't know. And then the president, I'm like, well, you're at least closer. Now I'm like, oh, why is he making sense, for God's sakes? All right, so that is news. I get one. How about you, Adam? What are you going to come back with?
6 foot Asian water lizard on the loose in the hood.
What?
Wow.
Oh my goodness, it's like the tiniest Godzilla ever.
I don't need to hear any more. That's news.
Done. We're moving on.
All right. No, Naples, Florida. Poseidon, a 5-year-old.
No, wait. I changed my answer. It's Florida? No, that kind of shit's not news in Florida.
That's just
Did I say Florida? I meant like North Dakota. Same kind of thing,
there
right?
There are no lizards there. It's too cold.
I'm sorry.
No,
Go ahead, Engineer Adam.
Yes.
It's Poseidon, a 5-year-old Asian water lizard, which is a 6-foot, 50-pound reptile, has escaped after the recent storms. He was kept in a 20-foot by 20-foot outdoor enclosure.
Okay.
Which I'm just going to say seems kind of small for a 6-foot, 50-pound lizard.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's that reminds me of my dorm room. Oh, well, I'm kind of like a 6-foot lizard, so I guess maybe it's not so bad.
Yeah, but do you have to do everything in that one dorm room?
Yeah, I did.
For the rest of your life.
Yeah.
But no,
With
he
another
escaped.
guy.
He escaped after the enclosure sustained damage during Hurricane Irma.
Okay.
And the owner is asking people to help him find his beloved pet.
Oh.
Aw.
That's
Check the early bird special at Shoney's.
That's where you think he is? That would be weird, just walking to Shoney's of a 6-foot lizard being like, more bacon, please.
That's it.
All right, so we've obviously found out where it is. It's at Shoney's. Is it news?
You know, again, I'm going to change my original answer. In any of the other 49 states, that would be news. But I'm sorry, that is just one of the most Florida news stories ever. That seems completely ordinary for Florida.
Ah, well, that's fair. Well,
no, it'd be more of a Florida story if we found out the lizard had like robbed a gas station while on bath salts.
The night is young.
That's true. You never know. They haven't found it yet.
It hasn't been found yet.
Yeah,
so
could be doing
but it hasn't gone full Florida yet.
So on the same topic of animals, I also have an animal story. So far this year in Iowa, there have been 3,344 crashes involving animals, according to the Department of Transportation for Iowa. Those crashes have caused 156 injuries, over $14 million in property damage, and even one fatality. That's so far this year. Many of these crashes have been due to deer, as we know that happens here in Virginia as well. Apparently, some people in Iowa believe that they have the solution are not shy to reach out to the Department of Transportation with what the department says is a surprisingly common suggestion.
Axes.
And I quote, "It is a water lizard." No, why don't you put those deer crossing signs in places where they make it more safe for the deer to cross?
Oh, I heard about this. I know where you're going.
So that
Pretty sure this was a Jeff Foxworthy joke from way back when.
Well, apparently it isn't. It's what people actually believe, and it prompted the Department of Transportation to make a post on Facebook explaining that deer can't actually read signs, and the signs are there to make the drivers more alert. Which the initial question that people are bringing up, I think, offers a hint as why the signs haven't worked yet.
I have no idea.
Deer. Got it.
Sorry. Sorry.
It's going to be a pun zone all night long. You should be glad Victor wasn't here. He would come over the microphone and choke you out.
Would he fawn all over me?
Yes. Don't do it. No, what? That isn't even good. Okay, so enough of the puns. Is it news?
That deer can't read? Is that new? Is that what you're saying? Would that be the question?
Some combination of the fact that deer can't read and that Iowans don't know that.
Well, see, I don't know. The fact that deers can't read might be news. The fact that Iowans think deer can read, that might not be news.
No, okay. Well, you're the editor-in-chief. Where are you going on this one?
All right, I'm going with news.
News, all right.
No! I can't win anymore.
All right, so what do you have, Adam? Let's finish it up quickly. We got a couple minutes to go.
Gotcha. So, I have for you the tale of the greatest thing that could ever happen to a human being.
Okay.
Wow.
A Scottish woman paid $61 for a flight from Glasgow to Crete.
That's good.
And ended up being the only person on the plane.
Oh.
That's scary because there's no pilot. Nobody knows how to fly. Just get her own drinks? That's terrible.
This Karen Grieve, I guess is how you pronounce this, 57-year-old mother from Ayrshire, Scotland, decided to take a trip to Crete to write a novel and got on the 189-seat plane to find out she was the only passenger.
Oh, okay.
Now,
only
wait
passenger.
a minute. Is this like a European thing? Because Like on a U.S. airline, they would cancel that puppy. Like they wouldn't take you.
Right. They would just give you a taxi.
Yeah.
This doesn't say what airline it was.
It was not well run.
Europe is pretty lousy with all sorts of like startup airlines that have some very interesting stories.
That's kind of amazing. What would you do, Seth, in a completely empty plane? If it was just you and the crew and you got the whole plane to yourself?
Oh my goodness. Join the Mile High Club by myself?
I've already done that. That's not hard. You wouldn't have to go to the bathroom.
That's it.
That's the only advantage.
Wow.
I'm just going to do this here in this aisle.
I would totally be stretched out across all 3 chairs, feet out in the aisle. Who
I'm tired of none of these motherfucking people being on this motherfucking plane.
Right. I would put my mask on without helping anyone else first.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, all right. So we've decided what we would do. The question is it news?
Yeah, that's news. That's something special. I'm going with that. That's
excellent.
news.
All right. Then
I didn't get shut out. That is news that I did not get shut out.
All right, I have one last one, which I'm very proud of. So typically, if you see a headline containing locked in walk-in cooler, it would invoke images of a scared man or woman, hoping he can stave off hypothermia until somebody hopefully hears his calls for help. However, in this story, much like in the last story,
is this Florida again?
No,
Okay.
it's not. It's actually Wisconsin. However, in this story, Jeremy Van Ert knew that the store's cashier was not going to sell him beer. I assume since he was age 38, it was due to his current state of sobriety. So he hid out in the beer cooler, and much like in our previous story, had the beer cooler to himself because at midnight, when the automatic lock engaged, he camped out and consumed an 18-ounce bottle of Ice House beer, 3 cans of Four Loko. He also fell over a stack of Busch Light 30-pack cases, breaking open 3 of them. And when he was let out at 6 a.m. because a customer saw him, he ran, or whatever form of locomotion occurs when you try to run after a night drinking beer in a cooler. Needless to say, it did not work. He is now being held for theft and an unrelated charge, which I do not know, but I assume has something to do with poor decision-making of a man who drinks 3 Four Lokos. So...
Are we also just not going to talk about the irony of how his first beer was an ice house while locked in the cooler?
He had a cooler. He could have picked anything. He picked an ice house.
Isn't Milwaukee just one big beer cooler?
Right. You would think if he had been in Milwaukee, you'd think he'd go, Milwaukee's best. That sounds really good. Yeah. That's obviously the best one I can have. But no,
unless you've ever been to college, and then you know better.
Right. So he ended up... He had a plan. What I like is that even drunk enough that they wouldn't serve him or sell him beer, he still had this plan brewing in his head where he's like, I got an idea. I'm going to hang out and then I get all the beer I want for one night. And it was interesting that, he went Ice House and then 3 Four Lokos. That was him living out his fantasy.
Dream big.
Yeah.
Dream
exactly.
big.
Also, that doesn't seem like a lot for being locked in there from like midnight to 6 a.m.
He probably passed out while tumbling over the cases. So it obviously was this man's bucket list, I assume.
Yeah.
Is it news, though?
Is that news? Mm-hmm. You know, I'm going to say yes, just because of his poor choice of beers. I think it's bad life choices upon bad life choices.
So what you're saying is the fact that he drank Ice House beer when he had a choice between beers is the news.
Yes, that's the news element.
Everyone else drinks Ice House because they have no other option. All right, cool. Well, this week I have taken the lead 3-1 over engineer Adam.
Wow.
Granted, he hasn't had a lot of time to practice these things, so this is new to him.
I'm getting better.
Yeah, you didn't get shut out, so I think that counts for something. So we'll get back to another man who would probably lock himself in a beer cooler, Seth Kibel.
Woohoo!
I don't know enough about you to say that you'd actually lock yourself in a beer cooler, but I do feel like you would have gone for something other than Ice House.
I like to think so.
Yeah, at the very least.
So, yeah.
You strike me as maybe getting locked in a wine cooler type of guy. Maybe a little bit more
Scotch, whiskey.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, but if you're keeping those in a cooler, we're not friends anymore.
That's a good point.
Oh,
it's a very good point.
Yeah, you're getting judgment from the engineer.
No, I am one of those people that will get very mad at a party host if I ask for whiskey and they pull it out of the freezer.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I agree. There's right and there's wrong, and that's just wrong.
I'm leaving!
I won't even take the free whiskey at that point.
All right, so Seth Kibel, you came here this evening to tell us about a brand new CD that you put out. Right?
Yeah.
It's called Seth Kibel Presents Songs of Snark and Despair. Obviously, you're releasing that Tuesday, November 7th at Bethesda Blues and Jazz Supper Club in Bethesda, Maryland. Tell us a little bit about this album. You told us what inspired it. What are the songs about, obviously, Snark and Despair?
Yeah, I mean, the songs are all there are a myriad of musical styles. There's some more straight ahead rock, there's some jazz and klezmer and reggae and stuff.
Yeah.
But lyrically, it's all kind of a sardonic look at the sad state of affairs in this country. A lot of it was musical therapy for me. I mean, all right, let me back up.
Yeah.
So, when the election happened, like many other people, I was kind of a little bit shell-shocked. I was trying to find a way to kind of process what had just happened in this alternate timeline in which I was living.
Yeah.
So
you didn't have somewhere to go and throw axes to work all that out frustration.
Yes.
So I went into Office Depot and picked up a little... It was like 2 days after the election, picked up a little sketchbook.
Yeah.
And I started just writing down ideas, just thoughts. And they were kind of, they were like Facebook posts, but like
I should
on
drink.
paper. And before long, I realized they were going into songs. They were turning into songs. And I decided to just kind of roll with it as kind of my own personal therapy. So I started making these demos in my basement. And I called up a lot of my musical friends who are some of the real kind of A-listers in the Washington, Baltimore area. People like Flo Anito, Chris Ukiaga, David Kitchen, and Billy Coulter, Damon Foreman. And
we had Flo on the show.
You had Flo on the show?
Yeah, Flo on the show.
Oh, my goodness. All right. Well, she's on the record. She's a great friend. She's a ridiculously talented individual. And they were all everyone was into the project. So I just started finishing these songs and got some good people to record them, and then I burned my demos.
Yeah.
And now the album's out. And, the thing that disturbs me the most, but at the same time is gratifying, is my biggest fear in the whole process was that by the time this album came out, nothing would be relevant anymore. I kept on thinking the minute I paid for everything, that there would be like a little CNN breaking news alert on my phone that says, breaking news, Donald Trump resigns, Weary Nation says we don't want to talk about it.
That wouldn't even be bad. It would be worse if it was it actually turned out to be pretty good.
Exactly.
Right? And then you're like, damn it.
I have a whole song called Stalin's Revenge, which is all about Russian involvement in the election. And I wrote that like I said, I think in January when this stuff was just starting to come out, long before, Robert Mueller and all this other stuff.
Absolutely.
I wrote songs about their Obamacare repeal and health care and stuff well before a lot of the developments of the last few months. I mean, it's just, there's a song called Diversity, which is kind of all tongue-in-cheek.
How about this one? We have one called Misplaced Priorities that we're going to be playing.
Yeah.
What about that one? What is that about?
That one's all about it's about healthcare, it's about budget issues, and basically the priorities that this incoming administration seemed to have. And like I said, I'm disturbed at how relevant it still is. One of my opening lyrics is there's a lyric, Tom Price isn't right. And, boom, he's been dominating the news the last few weeks. You know?
Absolutely. Well, let's play a little piece from that.
Sure, that'd be great.
If people are interested in the whole song, they can right now stop our podcast, go to the 1 hour mark of this podcast and listen to the entire song. However, let's play a little snippet so people can hear what it's like to be Seth Kibel. So this is a song from his new album, Seth Kibel Presents Songs of Snark and Despair.
And I should point out, lest anyone think I am a reggae singer, I don't sing any of the songs in the album. I'm a horn player. I play clarinet, sax, flute, and I wrote all the songs, all the music and lyric. But I got all these different great guest vocalists. And on this track, the guest vocalist is a really talented guy by the name of Damon Foreman.
Okay, you're like the chieftains that way.
Yeah.
All right, so this is a song called Misplaced Priorities.
OMG, it's the OMB says Ryan's bill will kill up to 24 mil if they get ill. They can't afford to pay their medical bills. Tom Price isn't right. I don't know how he sleeps at night. The wheel of misfortune will spin.
So what I found most interesting about the tracks that you send over, you go through some different styles, but there's really kind of a base of kind of jazz in it. Like it feels like everything is coming from a jazz background and then moving into some of the other, you know, the rock and the reggae and things like that. That's kind of home base for you, it sounds like.
I think that's a fair point.
And there's some really great tracks that are like Dixieland kind of things, a great energy to it. And I think that's really interesting because there's not a lot of that out there, right? It's easy to be a rock band.
Yeah.
It's easy, you know, even reggae is more popular. There's not a lot of like jazz, especially when it comes to talking about something political or something, you know, and that's kind of where it originated from. Like it started jazz, you know, when you look at kind of its heyday,
Sure.
a lot of those songs were really kind of I don't know if they say anti-establishment, but very like individuals, right? It's talking about the individual, the birth of cool and things like that. It's the value of being of having different thoughts and having a different view of the world. So it's interesting to have you kind of revitalize that and be even critical of things with that same genre. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I mean, it's almost become a bad cliche of you know, people saying, you know, well, I got my look at it this way. I was very excited. I got my very first Dixie Chicks email the other day. An anonymous person who emailed me through my website and said, you know, how disrespectful of you. Stick to music, not politics.
Yeah, okay.
And of course, like I said, it's almost a bad cliche at this point because everyone knows that music and politics have gone together.
Sure.
For generations.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And art in general. I mean, you can't separate art from politics.
No.
And, you know, as a musician, it seemed perfectly natural for me to kind of comment in my own snarky way on the times we live in.
It seems. Yeah. Go ahead, Adam.
No, so I was just going to say also that you know, when I was putting together the sample tonight, you actually sent me like what 6-7 songs to choose from, and I actually had a really difficult time picking which one to put on the show because they were all really good, had a lot of cool stuff to them. So I'm looking forward to actually hearing the other stuff as well. Like,
Well,
on
thank
the
you,
full
not
length.
Victor.
You're welcome.
So I think that's really cool. And I think really what it comes down to is there are a lot of political statements and social statements in music. There are fewer people who just make it more black and white. And although you have a lot of wordplay and stuff, you're very like straightforward with what your thoughts are on things.
Sure.
And so it's almost that I don't want to say the word dumb it down because I don't think that's the case, but you've made it in such plain language that some people can be like, hey, wait a minute. You're saying something mean about the thing I like. Where a lot of other artists are like, you know, using metaphor and stuff. And so it's like, I don't know. Maybe that is just about a lake.
Well, you know, now granted, this is a podcast, but if anyone goes to my website or looks anywhere in the interwebs, you'll see the album cover. And the album cover was drawn by a great political cartoonist, one of the top political cartoonists in the country today,
Cool.
Kevin Gallagher.
Okay.
Cal. He draws for the Baltimore Sun and for The Economist.
Okay.
And he's kind of a friend of mine, and he heard the recordings and was totally hip to it and wanted to help me out. And he asked me, he's like, you know, how subtle or overt do you want me to be in the cover? And I said, well, you know, honestly, I want people to know
Right.
what the I don't want anyone to buy this record
and then be like, what?
Exactly,
Yeah, no,
exactly.
that's-
So I want people to look at this graphic, whatever you draw for me, and know exactly where I'm coming from. So he made this great cartoon. You can see that kind of has,
yeah,
it kind of has you know, Donnie, our fearful leader, as a T-Rex with tiny hands, of course, and I'm in the corner with a musical bow and arrow, shooting him with a musical note.
Yeah.
So it's great because, like I said, anyone looking at it knows
should know not to buy it.
Exactly.
If they're going to get all uppity about
yeah,
it.
I mean, yeah. Richard Spencer, not going to like it.
Well, speaking of how much politics and music have been intertwined over, over history, let's jump into, we're running a little late, but I think we can blow through this pretty quickly. We do a segment called This Week in History.
Oh, I'm excited.
So what we're going to do is we're going to go through a handful of things that happened this week, historically speaking. At the end, you're going to let us know, in your opinion, what the most historically important thing was that occurred. It could be to you, to the country, to the world, whatever you'd like to use. Any criteria you wish is perfectly fine with us. So without further ado, remember, we do have to keep this quick. So we'll start off. Adam, I think you are starting off with 1415.
In 1415, the Battle of Agincourt. During the 100 Years' War, Henry V, defeated with only about 5,500 men, defeated a French army of 20,000 using the new invention of the longbow.
That helps. They should have thrown axes.
Well, the bar hadn't been opened yet, so the Parisians hadn't quite figured that one out yet.
Well, that makes sense. All right, that's pretty important.
Yeah, it set up European politics for the next 100 years or so.
And somebody wrote an album about it, I'm sure, on a lute.
Yeah.
Or something, right?
And then moving ahead, someone should really make sound effects for these things. 1774, Congress petitions the English king to address grievances.
Yeah.
On this day in 1774, the First Continental Contest sends a respectful petition to King George III to inform His Majesty that basically they weren't cool with what he was doing.
Big mistake.
Yeah, I wonder what that looks like. It's like, pardon me. Could you eat a dick?
It's more like, hey, these extra taxes you're putting on, not really working out. Can we please work something out?
Right.
And in response, they added more of the things the colonists didn't like.
The wall just got 5 feet taller.
Yes. Keep talking, and we're going to make it even more.
And we all know what happened after that.
Yeah, we won that one. That was good. I think that was good. I don't know. I do like
the jury's still out on that.
Yeah, we've buggered some things up along the way, so I'm not sure.
We're all watching their TV shows now, so I think they won in the end.
Yeah, they have cooler accents than we do. All right, so 1844. You may not know this, but in 1844 is when the world ended.
Ah.
Yeah, at least according to religious followers of William Miller, known as the Millerites.
Oh, right.
Many of whom gave away their earthly possessions in preparation for the event. It was supposed to happen, it was the 2300-day prophecy in Daniel 8:14 from the Bible. So that ended up being between March 21st in 1843 and March 21st, 1844.
Someone forgot to carry the two.
Yeah, and I believe they actually all got together on like the March 21st, 1844, and like at a farm and waited for it to happen because it had to happen by midnight. Yeah. And then like the sun came up and they were like, oh, this isn't. So then he made a new production and said, it's October 2nd, it's 22nd. I was a little off. I just carry the one, and and so that was later known as the Great Disappointment, which I thought
for who?
Yeah, I know. Which makes me feel better about that date that I was on.
I bet there were a lot of awkward conversations after the world didn't end. After people professed their love for each other and
I thought
gave up all their money.
Yeah. A bunch of the disappointed Millerites left the group and went on to become the Seventh-day Adventist Church.
Ah.
That's where they came from. Also, let's see. And then 1919, I believe that's you, Adam.
Prohibition begins in the U.S. with the passage of the National Prohibition or Volstead Act.
Boo!
Yes.
Any drinks containing more than 1/2% of alcohol became illegal.
That's my mouthwash.
Yeah, that's true. That's
pretty much.
All right.
So yeah, setting up that
was very disappointed
14 years of awful.
Imagine if that guy had gotten locked in the beer cooler then. It would just been just empty. It's just him with O'Doul's.
He'd be like, I can't drink anything. Volstead Act.
Yeah. All right, and then in 1938, 1938 is the first Xerox copy. Yeah, followed
right.
Of a butt cheek?
Of a butt cheek. No, that was years later. That was shortly after the butt cheek happened. But I think I'm assuming that was followed by the second Xerox copy shortly after that. But Chester Carlson and Otto Cornell succeeded in electronically copying the message from a glass slide to a sheet of wax paper. So Xerography is from the Greek word xeros for dry and graphene writing. Cornell was not impressed with the results and left Carlson. Carlson also approached IBM with the invention, and they turned it down. He would wait exactly 10 years to the day to publicly announce his discovery to the world. So for 10 years, they had knew how to make Xerox copies, and just nobody cared.
And wasn't it ironic that someone copied his idea?
That's yeah.
Sorry.
That's how it got stolen. No, I assume that Xerox then, I guess, bought it from him. I didn't see news on that, so I'll have to look that up this week and find out if that's where it ended up going to.
What was the date of the first paper jam?
The first paper jam, yeah. Right, the next year. Well, that's why the guy left. He was like, it worked once, but now there's this fucking paper jam. What are we supposed to do with that? I don't know. IBM's
Open rear compartment? Where is the rear compartment?
I built this and I don't know where the rear compartment is.
We're just going to have to wait a few decades for someone to film Office Space so we know how to fix this.
Exactly.
All right, exactly that. Also, 1963, this is very important. Remember, you have to pick the most important thing in history, right? By whatever means you want. This might be a front runner. First cat in space.
Wow.
Yeah.
The Russians?
No, I believe it was the French.
The French?
Yeah.
Yes, the French very briefly had a space program.
Félicite is sent into space in a capsule on top of a French Veronique.
Did they bring him back?
Yeah, a G1 rocket traveled 120 miles into space for 1 hour and 20 minutes and then returned to Earth by parachute and was recovered safely. Interesting thing, he landed on his feet. So, yeah, that was really good. She's the only cat to she is the only cat to have been sent into space and survived, which is a little dark. But she was black and white female found on the streets of Paris and was selected from 14 cats and 14 cats that the French trained for the mission. I don't know what they had to do in space other than just like, why am I in space? Like, what training are you giving a cat? I don't.
And fun fact, if I remember the presentation on this correctly, I think they started with 20 cats, but they kept losing them.
Couldn't herd them. That was the problem.
So the 14 are the ones they managed to not lose track of.
There's another one missing. That's all right. The cat came back. The cat came back.
Couldn't stay away.
Yes. I was all right. So, we have 1980.
1980, Australian rock gods AC/DC earned their first top 40 hit with You Shook Me All Night Long.
I loved that video.
Becoming the theme song like every sport event you've ever been to.
Well, and we are the champions.
That too.
That's way up there. Yeah, that's way.
I'm pretty sure it's illegal nowadays to not have that blast through the billboard speakers at every game.
No, I think you're right. Yeah,
because the message we really want to send our children is no time for losers.
Yes, there's no time for losers, especially our team.
Yeah,
get those
especially
losers out
you
of
little
here.
shit.
Was that the original singer or the second singer? Do you know? Any idea?
I thought that was the second one, right? That was
I think
like
it's the second one,
right when he joined. I think.
So Bon Scott didn't have a top 40 hit, right?
I don't believe so.
I don't
no.
think so. Was it Angus Young? Is that his name?
No, that's the guitarist.
That's the
who looks
guitarist.
like the schoolboy.
Okay.
Brian something, right? Brian
McGregor.
Brian. That's Ryan. He was an MMA fighter. He's a singer, for God's sake.
I've seen him on Top Gear so many times and I can't remember his last name.
Yeah, Smith. Brian Smith. We're gonna Brian Johnson. I think it's Brian Johnson.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, nailed it. Right when I needed it. All right. So last but not least, I don't know. This one makes me laugh, and so I
think I've got them all, but I wasn't really listening. Can you start again?
Yes, one more time from the top. All right, where is the actual? I thought I had. Where is it at? Oh my goodness!
Make something up.
I'm making it up. Okay, so here's the. In 1992, I can do it wrote from memory. Hopefully, a woman is detained in an airport for an unusually large buttocks. That is, yeah. No, that happened. That was a thing that actually occurred. what happened?
We're going to put your ass in quarantine. Literally, just your ass.
So, people will get butt implants. That's like a thing now, right?
Yeah.
So the problem was that she happened to get butt implants. They were, unfortunately, at 1.5 pounds of heroin were butt implants.
Jesus.
Yeah. So they
that
were
is
like,
a lot of heroin.
Yeah. So they basically just were like, well,
now, I'm not a doctor.
yeah. 1.5 pounds of surgically implanted heroin, and tried to go through a Colombian airport, and they were like, can I talk to you for a minute? And and she was like, what? No, this is stylish.
And you got to be creative to impress the security people at the Colombian airport, because they've seen it all.
Yeah, you would think that they wouldn't even report that usually.
I know.
Like,
And there must have been some really, really shoddy surgery, because if people in Colombia think that booty looks a little too large,
Right.
you've gone overboard.
Right, yeah. I mean, if J-Lo can get through the Colombian airport, I assume that she's been there once or twice, right? Then I wonder if hopefully they didn't stop her, but
It's all about the free base. Sorry.
she had some junk in her trunk. Like some junkie. Really is what it was.
Yeah.
So that is everything in the history of the world that happened this week. Nothing else occurred at all. We didn't just skip over the boring things. So what would you say, Seth, is the most historically important thing that happened for whatever reason you feel by any criteria?
Okay, this is tough. I'm going to do some basic elimination.
Okay.
French and British, that's not news. That happened like every 10 years they used to have a battle.
Okay.
I don't care. That's not important. The colonists petitioning the British,
It gets newsworthy later, right?
It gets newsworthy later, but that's one of the kind of the excuse me moments. Excuse me.
Yeah, but it was this week in history, not eventually in history.
Yeah, so that's not newsworthy yet. Buttocks, no, buttocks are never newsworthy.
How dare you?
Yeah.
How dare you, sir?
I'm going to go with the Volstead Act. And I'm going to say this partially as a musician.
Yeah.
Because Prohibition, of course, was a stupid, backward, short-sighted, reactionary political effort. But damn, it created some good music. And
fair.
I feel like some of that may be happening right now. I mean, I'm not just talking about my own record, shameless plug.
Your record is very good.
But I feel like there's a lot of really good art being made right now as a reaction to the times we live in. And that happened after Prohibition. Man, there was a lot of great music made after that.
When people feel like they're being oppressed, they make art.
Yeah.
Right? That's a thing. That happens pretty consistently throughout history.
Donald Trump said he would create more jobs, and he's given me one.
There you go.
It's incredible.
Good job. You know what? That your entire CD is now defunct because we've now said he's done a good job at something. So, oh well.
I am a little bummed though because I did have to pay for my album. I thought Mexico was going to pay for it.
What happened? Oh my goodness. All right, so that is what we've determined is that the beginning of Prohibition.
Yep.
Wait, no, Keith, we skipped one.
What do we skip?
2010, Gwyneth Paltrow begins her plot to kill all of humanity.
What? When was that? Wait, what happened? I didn't even hear about that.
We don't have time. We only got like 5 minutes left in the show. We still got to do near and far. We'll come back to it next week.
Next week, we'll talk about why Gwyneth Paltrow might be trying to kill you. It's been a while since we've talked about that. All right. So we're going to do some news kind of like this week in history for you.
Okay.
We have a little segment we like to do near and far. We've got 2 stories we want to hear from you.
Okay.
One that's near, close to home. One out in your adventures. Hopefully you take a moment to think about that and we will play our near and far song.
Near. Now go far again. Far. See, that's what it's all about. You understand?
All right. Do you have a preference where we're going to be starting? Near or far?
Up to you.
Let's start near then.
All right.
What has happened to you near your home?
Well, I'm gonna tell gig stories because I got lots of them. My near gig story is playing a real upscale senior residence a number of years ago in the D.C. area. I won't mention names to protect people
Old
involved.
people.
But yes, but I was playing. It's actually a New Year's Eve function there, and I'd played there a lot. And there was one older gentleman there who was very much a bon vivant, kind of always the life of the party. He was probably in his 90s. He was very liked to flirt with all the other old women there. He was a funny guy, and everyone called him the General.
The General.
And this was a very high-end home. There were lots of like political figures and all sorts of people there. So I asked someone, I'm like, oh, is he really a general in the army? And they said, they told me, they said, no, he never even served in the military, but he was I'm trying to remember how many greats, but I'm gonna say great-great-grandson of Robert E. Lee.
Oh, interesting.
I might be leaving out one of those greats. I forget how many. But they said that's why, and he makes everyone call him the general. So anyhow, this one New Year's Eve, we're playing, and the general is up, and he's dancing with every woman who can get up out of her rocker.
Sure.
And he's drinking, and like I can see it coming a mile away that things are going to end badly. And he's having a great time, and I see him wobbling, and I just know it's going to happen. Sure enough, at one point, he kind of loses his balance. He sticks out his hand and puts it on a table to balance himself, and it was like one of those tables that had like collapsible leaves in it.
Oh, right, yeah. It's like the pedestal's in the middle, and then the table
so the
just
leaf goes down, he goes down with it, glasses shatter, it's a big noise. Now, don't worry, he's okay.
Okay, good.
He's okay, or was okay. This was quite a few years ago.
Can I still can he still help me get a great low rate online?
Yeah. He didn't break a hip or anything.
No.
Okay.
But it kind of stopped the whole party for a minute.
Yeah.
And as they're cleaning up the mess, one of the staff at this residence, who I know quite well, who happens to be African American, walks past me and just whispers to me as he's walking past me. He goes, "Man, he went down like the Confederacy." And that is probably the funniest thing anyone has ever said to me.
Yeah, no, that's the thing about that, right? He was holding on to that one.
He was waiting for the right moment.
I'm waiting. Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
He was that's fantastic to have that sense of humor on it. I don't, it's so weird to hear when you say he made people call him that. That's so strange, right?
It was weird, yeah.
You'd think you'd be like, call me the general. Like, nah, I don't think I'm going to do that. I'm going to call you Bill.
You can't give yourself your own nickname.
Right, yeah, that's very strange. You think after that incident, somebody should have like demoted him and be like, you're
lieutenant.
Colonel. Yeah, you're lieutenant now. That's where.
I bet he wasn't even cool enough to be able to get like his own plane to Crete. So how great could he really be?
Right. That was what they were missing at that New Year's Eve party. Axe throwing. Old people axe throwing. All right. So how about Far, Seth? You're a musician?
Yeah. Let's see. I mean, I've got some stories. I'll tell you. I'll unload a bit. Here's a chip off my shoulder. Now, this is not going to be completely effective because we're in the podcast world,
right?
And you're not seeing me. But look, Keith and not Victor, vouch for me. No one in this country ever tells me I remind them of Woody Allen.
No.
I don't get that in this country.
Right?
At all.
No.
But I have been on several different European tours.
Okay.
And it's become kind of a running joke among some of the musicians I work with that every time I'm in Europe, without fail, someone comes up to me afterwards and says, in whatever accent, they happen to have, you remind me of Woody Allen.
Really?
It's like they've never seen a Jewish guy with glasses play a clarinet before. And it's I don't necessarily consider that a compliment. You want to be told, you want people to come up to you and say, "Oh, you remind me so much of Ryan Gosling."
Right.
Or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Woody Allen, not so much. And it's become a never-ending source of chagrin that every time I'm in Europe, this happens. In fact, one time after a gig, I was going out to dinner with a whole bunch of British musicians. We were at this Chinese restaurant, and I swear to God, the waiter went out of his way to be rude to me. Really? And we were all kind of confused by it until one person just chimed in and said, maybe he's mad about Sun Yi.
Oh, that might be it.
Yeah.
Do you happen to travel to Europe with a 16-year-old stepchild of yours? Is that the problem?
I really try not to do that.
Yeah, it does. Maybe that was the thing that tipped them off. Is you're like, I've got this kid with me, and I'm kind of related, but not really. So that's really fascinating. So you think that particular waiter was like, I can't even give this guy food.
I know, yeah.
Which means that he wasn't like, that guy reminds me of Woody Allen. He had to think, that's Woody Allen, right? Because
yes, exactly.
You wouldn't say, like, it seems like a weird thing. Like, so if you saw someone that looked like Hitler, you wouldn't go up and be like, fuck you for everything you did. Because you would know that it's somebody that looks like Hitler, not Hitler. Right? And on that note, I guess that is where we're going to end the show.
Always end with Hitler.
Yeah, always end with Hitler. So, Seth, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, guys.
We really
it's been a lot of fun.
It. So again, Seth Kibel is going to be releasing his brand new album, Seth Kibel Presents Songs of Snark and Despair, at Bethesda Blues and Jazz Supper Club in Bethesda, Maryland. That's on Tuesday, November 7th. That's election night for Virginia, but you Maryland people, you have no control over your fate on that night, so you have to go to this show.
We'll see you there.
The song you heard from Seth Kibel today is Misplaced Priorities. That's on that album. You can hear that at the end of the show here, coming up soon. Go to www.sethkibel.com to hear the entire album. Thanks to Kevin Evinger, McNally22, Justin Rogers, Big Metal Records, Now Chemical Records, and Engineer Adam for all their contributions. This has been another wasted hour, and if you just realized that, don't blame us. We warned you.
The OMB says Ryan's bill will kill up to 24 mil if they get ill. They can't afford to pay their medical bills. Tom Price isn't right. I don't know how he sleeps at night. The wheel of misfortune will spin, and he puts the poor back in jeopardy again. Oh, where did they go? And where can they be? Our misplaced priorities. Things are looking pretty bleak down on Sesame Street. Big Bird spent his nest egg. If he gets the bird flu, he is gonna be dead. Oscar the Grouch had to foreclose upon his house. The budget's brought to you by number 45 and the letters FN. You never find, you never see our misplaced priorities. Hey, where did we go? Days when the cuts came. Down to Mar-a-Lago, baby, playing a golf What good is a boring museum or a sleepy concert hall? They just can't compare, I do declare, to a bigly, a beautiful, magnificent wall. Funding the CDC seems like a waste to me. I've seen enough movies to say when the zombies come, they never save the day. Oh, where did they go? Or where can they be? Our misplaced priorities. Well, the EPA can just go away. Who cares about the Chesapeake Bay? A Meals on Wheels is just a raw deal, and the drugs are more fun without the FDA. Let Trump and sound bury morals in the ground. We can't afford to grouse, and we cannot make Melania sleep with her spouse. She'll never find, and we'll never see our misplaced priorities. She'll never find, no, and we'll never see our misplaced misplaced priorities. Oh, oh, oh. Oh, 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 oh. We'll never find, she'll never find, they'll never find the misplaced priorities. She'll never find the misplaced priorities. No, Melania, she don't even want to be with the Danny. No. Is she okay? Or do you wonder every day? Oh, we got it upside down. We live in a bizarre world of Superman time. Upside down.